Hi, fourth grade. This week we're going to be starting Chapter 7, which is all about statistics and probability. In this chapter, you're going to learn how to collect, organize, and interpret data. You're going to be predicting the probability of events, and you're also going to be exploring and solving problems using diagrams and graphs. So it's a really fun chapter. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Here is a little preview of some of the types of graphs we're going to be studying. Here at the top you'll see a pictograph, which we're going to spend some extra time on this evening. This is a bar graph. You've probably seen bar graphs before. This right here is a line graph. This is a circle graph. And above it is a survey and line plot. So this is the survey right here. This is the line plot. A couple things you need to know about graphing before we begin is that all graphs must be labeled properly. This is very important. This usually includes a title and a key. The title of the graph should tell you what the graph is about, what is the information that you're looking at, and the key should tell you what different symbols or colors mean or what they represent. So today we're going to be spending a little extra time on something called a pictograph. Well, when you look at the word pictograph, you probably see, or you probably think of the word picture. And you're absolutely right. A pictograph is a graph that uses pictures or symbols to show the data. So data or data is just a fancy way of saying information. So here you see an example of a pictograph, and this is showing the different varieties of apples in a food store. So like I told you, all graphs need a title and a key. Here's the title right here, and then down here we have our key. So the title tells us this graph is going to be about the varieties or the types of apples in a food store, in a grocery store. And then this key down here shows us that a solid red apple, a picture of a solid red apple, shows us that that represents 10 apples. A half of an apple only represents 5 apples, which makes sense. So a picture of a whole apple would be 10, and then half of 10 is 5. So a picture of a half of an apple will represent 5. So if I wanted to read this pictograph, I see my labels. These are the different types of apples. There are Red Delicious, there are Golden Delicious, there are Red Rome, Macintosh, and Jonathan. So I know that each of these pictures represents 10. So let's see how many Red Delicious apples there are. Well, we all can count by 10. So 10, 20, 30. So in this grocery store, there are 30 Red Delicious apples. Okay? Let's look at the Golden Delicious apples. There are 2 symbols that represent 10 and one that represents 5. So 10, 20 plus 5. There are 25 Golden Delicious apples. So you can go ahead and look at all the other types of apples, and we could even see really quickly what is the most popular apple. Okay, we can see that the Red Rome has the most apples. So that's kind of the beauty of a pictograph, is it shares the information with you and you can visualize, you can see the data very easily and very quickly. Okay, so like I said before, in order to make a graph, you have to have some sort of data or information. So somebody had to go to this grocery store and count the apples. And oftentimes, people use tally marks to record data. So this is an example of a tally mark right here. We've used them a lot in class this year. And tally marks are always written in groups of 5, which makes them easy to count. So whoever worked at this grocery store went through and created tallies of how many of each type of apple there were. So here is our data. This is our information right here that we would use to make our graph. So you'll notice that data is always listed by categories. So here's our 5 different categories of apples. Then a symbol needs to be chosen to represent the number in each category. So oftentimes you're going to want to pick symbols that are easy to draw and easy to read, and then also numbers that are easy to count by. So tens, it's very easy to count by tens, it's very easy to count by 5. So that's why this person chose to make their graph with tens and 5s. And then you'll draw the symbols to represent the number in each category. So like we said before, we knew that there were 10, 20, 30 Red Delicious apples. So here we see 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 tally marks. Okay, so those tally marks were transformed into this information here. And then of course you always want to label your pictograph with a title and a key. So this is our title, here is our key down here. So that's basically how you would go ahead and create a pictograph. And we are going to create pictographs in class. But before you can create a pictograph, you need data. So we will be collecting data and creating pictographs tomorrow. But the other important thing you need to be able to do is to be able to read the graph. So let's go ahead and look at another pictograph and see if we can read the information. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the title of the pictograph. So right here I see the title says Sports Played by Third Graders. So obviously this graph is going to be giving data or information about different sports played by third graders, okay? And then I want to look at my key. So I see that each ball, which is the symbol that was chosen, is going to represent a number of students. So each ball represents 10 students, okay? So usually when you look at a graph, you'll be asked to answer some questions. So the first question was, what does this graph tell us? Well, the graph is going to tell us how many students, how many third graders play each sport, okay? So we see that the categories are baseball, football, soccer, hockey, and basketball. So the second question says, how many kids played football? So I would find my football category, and I would count 1, 2, 3 balls, and I know that each soccer ball represents 10 students. Well, easy mental math, 3 times 10 is 30. So we know that 30 students played football. Number 3 asks, did more students play basketball or baseball? So this is a comparison question. It's asking us to look at 2 different categories of data and compare them. Well, when we look at the basketball, we see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 soccer balls, which would represent 40 students, right? 4 times 10. And when we look at baseball, there are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 students participated in baseball. So we can easily answer the question, there were more students that played baseball than basketball. So I want you to pause the video for just a second, and I'd like you to answer questions 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, 4 asks, what was the most popular sport? What was the least popular sport? What sport was played by 60 kids? And which sport is the median? We actually haven't talked about median yet this year, so we'll go ahead and skip that one, or if you want to try to answer it, if you think you know, that's great, and we will be looking at this in class tomorrow. So go ahead and pause really quickly. Okay, I hope you had a chance to answer the question, so let's go ahead and check our answers. Number 4 asks, what sport was the most popular? Well, I can easily quickly look at the pictures, and I see that soccer has the most balls. So soccer was the most popular sport. Which sport was the least popular? Hockey only has 2 soccer balls, so clearly it is the least popular sport. And then the number 6 asks, what sport was played by 60 kids? Well, I can see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Soccer was played by 60 kids. So hopefully now you know a little bit about pictographs. You've been introduced. You should be able to hopefully read a pictograph and start thinking about the steps you would take to create a pictograph, and we will practice those steps tomorrow. So thank you, and get excited to work on graphs and statistics these next couple weeks. All right. Good night.